Introduction to malware. Getting started with the introduction, what is malware? Simply put, malware is the blend of two distinct words, malicious plus software. Malware can be classified as well as categorized. Beginning with the classification, malware can be classified into two types, namely user mode malware and kernel mode malware. This can be further explained with the help of protection rings, which are nothing but the layers of privileges within the architecture of the computer system. Protection rings are organized in a hierarchical form, starting from ring 0, which is the most privileged layer, to ring 3, which is the least privileged layer. The intermediary rings 1 and ring 2 are comprised of the drivers that facilitate communication between ring 0 and 3. The one targeting ring 0 is termed as kernel mode malware. For instance, let us have a look on this system that consists of applications such as VLC, Notepad and MS Office, etc. on top of OS. When the kernel mode malware corrupts the kernel program that controls the MS Office application, the link between the application and the OS is broken. None of the existing files or any new instances related to the MS Office application, that is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc., can be accessed. The one targeting ring 3 is called user mode malware. When this malware affects a Word application file, it results in corruption only of those infected files. This clearly means that an existing Word file can be accessed, or a new instance of the same Office application can be created without any hindrance. Having learnt about how malware is classified, let us move into categorizing malware. Categorization of malware. Malware can be categorized into 4 groups, namely virus, worm, trojan, and backdoor. Malware. The objective here is to study the characteristics, behavior, and purpose of malware. Know the architecture of malware. Learn how to create malware. Learn how to remove malware. Learn how an antivirus detects malware. And learn how to bypass an antivirus. At the end of this episode, one would be able to create malware, differentiate between the types of malware based on their characteristics, behavior, purpose, and architecture, and defend against malware. Virus. Stepping into action, the first category of malware, virus, is the most prevalent one. What is a virus? Virus stands for Vital Information Resource Under Siege. Virus is nothing but a piece of code affecting the normal behavior of a system. Components of virus. Virus comprises of the following components, namely concealer, payload, and replicator. As the name suggests, this component concealer helps in anti-detection by concealing itself to look like a benign application. The payload is the actual malcode holding the executable instructions, and the final component, the replicator, is the one which helps the virus to craft duplicate copies of itself. Now let us have a look at the characteristics of virus with respect to each component. The component concealer is responsible for making the virus appear stealthy, which allows it to implement its intent in secrecy and to evade the antivirus. The next component, payload, allows the virus to carry another virus, affecting a specific individual host, meaning it is host-specific. One may think formatting one's system helps to get rid of the virus if present. However, viruses remain even after a system format. This is accomplished with the help of the replicator and payload components. Having learnt the basic information, such as characteristics and components of a virus, have you ever wondered how to create one such virus? To create a virus, one must know the life cycle, that is, phases of a virus. These involve 6 stages, starting from origination, transmission, triggering, infection, identification, and removal. The first phase, origination, is the place where a virus is born. Normally, a virus can only be created when one thinks from the attacker's point of view. Tech geeks will always love to build a virus by coding a program. The basic requirements to code a virus include an OS, Notepad application, and a programming language which you are familiar with. From the wide range of programming languages available, we have opted for DOS commands. Having enumerated the requirements, let us get into our mission. To create a virus, just open the Notepad application, key in the following code, and save the file with a name followed by the extension .bat, and with Save As, type to all files in any desired folder. Your virus is ready. Before proceeding to the next stage, please stop. It would be mean of us not to tell you the easiest way to create a virus. We would all be very happy for our work to be done with a single click of a button. Let us show you how to use a tool to accomplish our task. The requirements for creating a virus using Tool include the much-needed OS and a Virus Maker tool. Here we opt for Delmay's Batch Virus Maker. Opening Delmay's Batch Virus Maker tool, navigating to the Payload tab and clicking on Spam with Message box, name your virus and click on Save As.bat for saving it in any desired folder. Having created a virus, what would be the point in keeping it to oneself? Worm. Having infected an individual host, the next target of any attacker would be to infect the network, which can be achieved with the help of a worm. So, what do you think a worm is? A worm is a network-specific, self-replicating computer program that propagates over the network. In order to implement its malicious intent, a worm comprises of the following components. The first component being Scanner. It looks for vulnerabilities in the victim's system. Once a vulnerability is found, the second component, Penetration Tool, is used to exploit this vulnerability. This paves the way for the next component, Installer, to bypass all the security mechanisms and inject the malicious code, that is, payload, into the victim's system. The final component, Discovery Tool, is the one that leads to the worm being called a network-specific worm, as it discovers the systems that are networked with the victim's machine. Trojan. The third type of malware is the Trojan. A Trojan disguises itself as a benign application, say for instance an antivirus update or a game or an advertisement, by wrapping itself up to the application. Trojan is a destructive piece of code with payload, concealer, and wrapper as its components. Payload. It is the actual piece of malcode that does the destructive work. Concealer. It uses concealment techniques in order to hide itself and prevent itself from being identified by any anti-malware programs. Renaming. It renames itself as a non-malicious application, e.g. Trojan.bat, to run DLL. Corruption. It corrupts the security software in the system, which is responsible for detecting the malware. Polymorphic code. As the name says, polymorphic code is the code that changes itself each time it runs, but the function of the code or its semantics will not change at all. For example, if the key to deliver the payload is 12, the code used to achieve this result varies, such as 6x2 or 2x6. Having seen this, let's move on to the final component, wrapper. Wrapper is the benign application that covers the Trojan and helps it to run in the background. Trojan allows one to gain access of another system, making the infected system respond to it that appears like a client-server architecture. A normal communication channel between a client and a server is termed as an overt channel. However, when the client, which is the attacker, sends a payload to the server, which is the victim, the attacker gains access to the victim's machine. This communication channel, normally known as overt channel, becomes a covert channel when used to perform unauthorized activities. Let us now get to knowing the final category of malware, backdoor. What is a backdoor? It is a small piece of malicious code that gains access to a system, bypassing all authentication mechanisms. Backdoor comprises of a single component, which is a piece of malicious code called a payload. When it is sent from one machine to another, where the receiver executes the code, the sender acquires full access of the receiver's system. As seen, backdoor is a method whereby one system gains access to another system, which follows client-server architecture. A normal communication between a client and a server is termed as an overt channel. However, When the client, which is the attacker, sends the malicious payload to the server, that is the victim, for gaining access to the victim's machine, the overt channel becomes a covert channel.
Antivirus. It would be unfair to sign off without discussing antivirus, which takes care of this malicious software, which would be absolutely unmanageable to remove manually. What is antivirus? A protective software designed to defend your computer against malicious software is termed as antivirus. It has derived its name due to its first inception, where it was purely designed to defend against the category of malware, virus. How does antivirus work? An antivirus protects the system in two modes. First is the interactive mode, where the AV is kept running in the background all the time. When an external drive is inserted, it checks the files inside and prevents malicious files from being opened. The other mode is the scan mode. When this is enabled on a timely basis, the critical areas of the system, such as the registry, startup, services, and task manager, are monitored.